Hello, welcome back to Madrona's Pulse Teachings. I am Iris, and here we are in our astrology of the week ahead. We are talking about April 28th through to May 4th. This is literally us waxing our way forth from our Taurus New Moon, which was on the 27th, and the Mars-Pluto opposition. And that is also really significant this week because we're going to have Mars moving away from that Pluto, and that Pluto this week is stationing retrograde. So that's one of our major shifts that we have. So Pluto stations retrograde this week, and Venus is going to enter Aries, re-enter Aries, because she's coming through the cosmic birth canal, which is that very, very, very potent shift from the final degrees of Pisces into the beginning 0 degree of Aries. She's rebirthing. And who is there to welcome her into literally a new reality? Who is there to welcome us into a literally new reality? Is Neptune. Okay, so as she comes into, and again, she enters Aries on the 30th, and then her exact conjunction with Neptune is on the 2nd, May 2nd. And that is big energy that we're working with this week as well. Okay, the other, we'll do the spoilers, Pluto, Venus. I also really want to mention that Ceres, who's in Pisces, is going to have her conjunction with the North Node, and then getting closer and closer to Saturn. Her exact conjunction with Saturn will be on May 12th, so past this week. But Ceres is coming in, and it's, she's almost kind of that Earth Mama. She comes in and she cleans up a little bit some of that Pisces realm of the Venus conjunction with the North Node and Saturn. So she's coming in as well. We have some really potent, strong, divine feminine energies this week, weaving their web with us. But so firstly, let's just focus a little bit on Pluto, because this is Pluto who's stationing retrograde. Again, this is happening at the end of the week, but especially as we kind of move through the week, we're going to be starting to feel that those tectonic plates of soul shifting. Now, how it impacts us, how we feel it, really does depend upon our own chart. But for us all generally, this Pluto retrograde is important, firstly because it's coming as it's just been in that opposition, in that very, very potent conversation with Mars, which was also a conversation with the new moon and Black Moon Lilith. And now that Pluto stations retrograde. And so the few days before the 4th, as we move into next week, the few days after, just knowing that there could be a little sludginess in mind. This is Aquarius energy. It is our thoughts, our envisioning, but it's also potentially deep insights that come. Pluto retrograde is allowing us an opportunity to reassess some of these shifts that we've been making with Pluto and Aquarius. And it's also really important to name, we're still very much learning about the huge shifts and death and rebirths of Pluto and Capricorn. When we have let's say we have a personal Pluto transit, it's usually around 2 years. It is not until Pluto has moved on from that transit that we really begin to integrate and get the understanding of, oh, right, my life is totally different now. This is what Pluto's been doing with me. When we're in the Pluto transit, we're just in it. We can be mindful, we're just in it, but we don't get the whole story until we move out of it. Pluto in Capricorn, a lot longer than 2 years. So now that Pluto's in Aquarius, we can start to kind of understand how some of our deep soul alignments were radically altered through death and rebirth cycles. And that's overlapping, that clarity overlaps, feeling into the beginning of Pluto in Aquarius, which again is a 20-year transit. So that Pluto is messy. The Pluto energies are messy. And now this week it goes retrograde. And so again, remember that Pluto is both unconscious desire, unconscious death and rebirth cycles of a soul consciousness that we can tap into, that we can get insights into, but we can't fully understand Pluto That's part of like journeying with Pluto is journeying in the dark. It is learning to see and breathe and feel the Plutonic energy in psyche and body. And as it's shifting direction, that's a potent time to feel into it. And we're going to move forth. I don't know if you could hear that. The mic probably didn't pick it up, but as I was talking about these deep Pluto feeling into it, there was this growling coming from the corner of the room because most of you know that I'm in big transition and I've like found a little nook that doesn't have boxes all around me, but I'm in one of the rooms that a cat is locked in. And Nikita, being Nikita, most of you know who Nikita is, just broke in while I was talking, and now there's cat situations happening. So, but I like that kind of growling because it is those rumbles of Pluto shifting its direction. And so just knowing and embodying a shift is happening. And I will make another video that's all about the Pluto retrograde and just knowing that we're coming into that kind of realignment of what is my authentic self, my authentic soul song that I can tap into from those kind of depths of soul, and the way that we consciously access that. And we're going to get a lot of information over these next 5 months about some realignments and some clarity. Retrogrades are wonderful for clarity. They get a really bad, a really bad reputation in pop astrology. Retrogrades are essential. They're part of the natural cycle. And when we co-create with them, they bring clarity, and they can bring actually massive shifts in our path. They allow us to actually release karma, especially when we're talking about Pluto. So we're coming into that 5-month period of Pluto in its retrograde, and this week signals that shift. And the other major shift that we have this week is sweet Venus leaving her companion of Saturn and moving into Aries. And so just recalling, this retrograde period that we've had with Venus has really been about unlearning aspects of what we were taught about desire so that we can claim desire. And she unlearned some of that in Aries as she was retrograde, and then went into Pisces, and it had to happen on a deep soul level. And now she's getting ready to move back. But that journey has been with Saturn. It's been with the bone mother. It's been with the North Node. It's also been potentially moving through quite a bit of grief. I know, just speaking with folks, there has been grief. And of course, that's always at the intersection of our personal lives and collective stories that are being created in the world. And so Venus is Saturn's still there. Saturn's moving through the final degrees of Pisces up towards the end of May. There is still grief. And yet Venus is moving into Aries, and she wants desire, and she wants fire. And this is desire that is new, and she's conjunct Neptune. As she comes in on the 30th, it's exact on the 2nd. This is new reality. This is letting us feel into desires that weren't possible before, because we weren't in this place that we are, and we weren't in the reality that is in the process of forming itself. Remembering, as I say these things, that this is a process that's underway literally for the next few years, especially into 2026. But we're going to feel into it. And so especially as Venus is conjunct Neptune this week, really allowing dreams, symbol, divine feminine energy and synchronicity to just emerge, to follow. Think of synchronicities a little bit like a breadcrumb trail this week. And so really following those synchronicities of, oh, there is something going on, and there's another part of my psyche that has created the trail in that ability to be out of time. And now this ego version of me in this body gets to see these crumbs, and those crumbs are part of a mosaic of soul. And so following them as that Venus moves through the birth canal, enters her conversation with Neptune. And also, we are going to have Ceres. So Ceres, the Earth Mother, is in Pisces as well, and she's moving, and she's going to be conjunct the North Node, and then that means that she's coming into her conjunction with Saturn. And so from May 1st through 6th is when she's conjunct the North Node. So next week, towards the 12th is when she's going to be conjunct Saturn. But just, I mean, this is lovely, okay? Ceres coming through, especially after Venus, She's coming through. She is the Earth Mother in Pisces. I mean, she is a little bit of all-seeing in Pisces. She is deep wisdom that is able to go into different realms. We are able to embody that. She is also potentially able to bring in some wisdom that helps us understand some of the grief. If you have been moving with and through grief, really leaning in, you know, especially she's going to be conjunct the North Node. This is karmic. This is karmic healing. This is Ceres is the ultimate nurturer. She's the ultimate mothering principle. This is the divine mother, the divine grandmother. If you want to work with that image, if you want to write her, paint with her, meditate with her, have her sing you a lullaby, she is here. And she's also, you know, Ceres and Saturn are not afraid of grief. They are not afraid of harsh winters. They are not afraid of the seasons that we have to move through in this plane. They are aware that it is just part of the natural process of being here and of being human. And so with her coming conjunct the North Node and also going to be coming conjunct Saturn, and I will I will at least do a little post on Patreon, and we'll be talking about Saturn and Ceres, but I'll at least do some posts about that, if not a video here, because we can receive quite a bit of healing and wisdom and understanding about the intersection of various realities. And as Nikita is like, yeah, sorry folks, but we know we get cat interruptions here, but she actually thinks like this entire move was all for her and everything is hers. Every room is hers. She has been like cat gymnastics from these railings that we have here. Say hello, Nikita. And so she came to speak with us about Ceres. And so there is this like deep wisdom, okay? And also nurturing and healing. But I mean, there is nothing about Ceres and Saturn that is spiritual bypassing. There is nothing that is just saying, oh no, let's just say that this is beautiful. And it's like they feel what transpires. And by feeling it, they integrate. But this is happening towards those final degrees of Pisces. And so this is bringing in other realm wisdom. This is bringing in journeying, some of those kind of shamanic practices and lineages. And that energy is starting to come this week. And then it's also going to carry us through next week. Okay. And the other piece I wanted to mention is Juno is opposite Uranus this week. So Juno is in Scorpio and she is sitting opposite Uranus. And this is actually going to last, it's all week. It's going to be exact on the second and third. And so this Juno, you know, she's also been trining Venus and Saturn and the North Node. She's still trining Saturn and the North Node. And now she comes into her opposition with Uranus, because Uranus has, of course, also been in that sextile with Saturn and Venus. And so Juno is she's been part of our cosmic conversations. And, you know, she really is in Scorpio and she's retrograde and she's relearning about deep integrity with the parts of herself that she wasn't really allowed to acknowledge. You know, and this is interesting because also during the Taurus New Moon, we had Black Moon Lilith. And Black Moon Lilith, she knows about her. She knows about her deep depths of Scorpio. And she's been taught all these labels about herself for not being allowed to embody them. Juno hasn't totally been aware of them because she was raised in such a patriarchal world that she took as the reality, that as she, in Scorpio, she goes through an awakening process and she says, wow, these parts of myself and the way that they connect me to earth and psyche and spirit, they've always been here, but I just wasn't allowed to acknowledge them. And yet Juno is so powerful and she has so much integrity and she's in this retrograde process. And she's helping us to meet these parts of ourselves that want to be part of our most committed relationships with ourselves and with others. And now this week she's opposite Uranus, who will help us awaken to these embodied parts of ourselves that actually, you know, this is lovely for this Juno because they get a little bit radical. And she gets to see that she's not like she was taught she was. She doesn't have to just be this perfect stature. And how wherever we are in the gender spectrum, if we identify with her as a female, if she's that divine feminine part of ourselves that shows up in masculine energy and non-binary energy, she's just with us. And she's here, and she's these parts of the self. You know, she had such a role to play in her relationship with Zeus. And he was a horrid, horrid husband. And, you know, I want to say she did the best she could do in our myths that we receive of her. And yet she, especially in Scorpio, she has shed that patriarchal internalized understanding of self and her own womanhood, and she is just getting to explore herself. And Uranus is opposite, and Uranus says, you have got radical parts of yourself, lady. You get to see them. And that is, of course, talking to the North Node. It's also going to be talking to Ceres and Saturn. It's been talking with Venus. And so this is an awakening process of divine feminine energy that is actually extracting itself from the male gaze, okay? The male gaze originally comes from film theory and has worked its way into popular culture, but what doesn't get taught, especially in pop culture, is that it's not just who is holding the camera in the beginning, it's the way that through patriarchal cultures, of course intersecting other power ideologies as well, we internalize understandings of the self through that gaze. We internalize the gaze. And so I can still, you know, present myself as quote unquote sexy. And if it's a sexy that has completely been constructed for me, there can be a process, and it's usually a couple decades process of saying, well, maybe that's what I was taught, but that's not actually when I feel sexy. I feel sexy in this way. And it's an ongoing process, and it's sidestepping. It's non-dimensional. It's linear. It's non-linear. And yet this Juno, she's in this process of realizing that what she thought was her integrity was still an integrity that was structured by old power structures. And now they coming off, and Uranus breaks them. Uranus breaks them. It's so freeing for her. Can also be a little overwhelming because literally reality crumbles as she's known it. And yet she's also in supportive trine with Saturn, the North Node, still Venus in the beginning of the week, and Ceres. Okay, so there's a lot of divine feminine energy. Just on that note, there's also, towards the end of the week, we have a grand trine, but there's also a trine going on between Jupiter and Pallas Athena, and also asteroid Chariklo, okay, who is Chiron's wife in the myth and is soul healer. Okay, and so they're in Aquarius. Pallas Athena and Chariklo are conjunct right around 21, 22 degrees, and they are trining Jupiter in Gemini, who's around 22 degrees, and they're in a trine all week. But towards the end of the week, on the 3rd and the 4th, true Black Moon Lilith, who oscillates quite a bit, she's back in Libra, and she's in a grand trine with them. Okay, so there's this air grand trine of Jupiter, Chariklo, Pallas Athena, and Black Moon Lilith on the 3rd and the 4th. But the energy between Jupiter, so kind of this expansive brilliance, this expansive healing brilliance, with that Aquarian energy coming through, also connects into our relationships. Into our relationship with ourself, into our relationship again with the parts of ourself Black Moon Lilith brings up that we have been taught are too much, that we have been taught, you know, in Libra, she's really helping us to see the parts of ourselves that we've been taught don't count because they're not what other people want in order to keep a status quo. Black Moon Lilith in Libra brings it because she knows that true equality is when we both sides of the relationship get to be heard and seen, and that there's this more dynamic, ongoing formation of boundaries rather than just saying, I don't talk about this, that person's happy. Black Moon Lilith and Libra wants to unlearn that. And so that energy comes up, and she's talking with this ultimate wisdom. I mean, Pallas and Athena in Aquarius is literally able to, is the owl with its ability to see so many different perspectives and strategize. And yet she is conjunct Chariklo. So there's this healing vision, this healing understanding and wisdom. And they're talking with Jupiter, who is of course in Gemini, and bringing some of those qualities into our language, into our expansive understanding. It's quite supportive energy. And it's also just more of those layers of divine feminine that are waking in us, in our embodied journeys through these planes. And it's all unfolding this week. Okay, so it is 2025 remains dynamic. I'm really going to send particular Venus re-entering Aries blessings. May we find our flame. This is primal flame. This is a primal flame that we really haven't ever been able to encounter before because of the death and rebirth journey that Venus has been on. And that's a death and rebirth, both because she's been on her retrograde, which is for Venus a death and rebirth, but it's also because she's gone through this Aries Pisces threshold. This is going to be the third pass. This is massive rebirth. And so she is coming into Aries, and Neptune is there, and there are no limits to that desire. Now, that said, when we got to show up in a particular relationship, in a particular dynamic, in a particular workspace, in a particular situation, that Venus might not want it. And so just knowing that that energy could be here, it's great to take that into the journal. It's great to take that onto a walk. It's great to take that into a little bit of exercise, because we might be meeting limits in a new way with this Venus. She might want to let her fire burn, and that Neptune is dissolving boundaries. And so as wonderful as that is and expansive as that is, we also do have certain boundaries here that bring in income, that bring in work, that bring, and so we might be feeling that. And if you're feeling this Venus like wanting to literally burn through limitations and boundaries, we want to witness that. We don't want to react right away, especially with a Venus who's just learning and is still in her shadow period. Give her some time. Give yourself some time. So bring it to the journal, share it with a friend. Mercury is also in Aries, and Mercury is out of its shadow. Mercury in Aries, especially working with this Venus in Aries, can be kind of quick words, and they could be a little reactionary. They might not actually be the pure feeling that can hold so many different perspectives. And so you might want to bring that to your journal rather than to the person that is particularly triggering it in a moment. That said, Venus got to speak. Make sure she gets to speak. And she could also be speaking into literally different realms. That's another side of this. Those are so many different layers, right? But Neptune is there. So we might be feeling into desires that are taking us into other realms, and also let yourself imagine those desires in those realms. Okay, and with that, I'm going to sign off for our astro reading of the week. I am sending you lots of blessings, and I'm going to go rest now. Be well. Take care.